Talk.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Talk with MC War the Light. I am here with a special guest, Danielle from Harmonious Hearts. Say hi.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Um, Danielle, for those who don't know, works a lot with the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and twin flames, and union of all sorts. Do you want to give a little example of talk about yourself?
Sure, sure. Well, I feel like a lot of it really comes down to obviously working on our inner union.
Mhm.
I really approach it in my work that regardless of how we identify, the people who are really connected with those messages have can all sort of agree that we've been initiated by a love, by a love situation. And so I really hold space for all of those different perspectives or however people identify with that. But generally, talking about the masculine and feminine collectives is um, where I focus mostly. Yes. And what we can really learn from these processes, coming into our own internal union, sort of embracing all the different aspects of ourselves and whatever is being reflected back to us through these types of connections.
Yeah, and there's a major importance right now of the dynamics with the masculine and the feminine
Hmm.
of working with men and seeing from a masculine perspective and seeing what my brothers are going through, and then from
Hmm.
my work and working with a lot of the most of my clientele is feminine, and seeing what they are working with and what they are going through.
I've actually been starting to touch on this a little bit, and maybe everyone's already kind of felt it in their own way. It really feels like the collectives and the overall like planetary energies that we've reached this like precipice point where the feminines are ready to drop more into like the physical material world
Mm.
building, and the masculines are really opening up to more of the like emotional
Yeah.
world and the spiritual. But it feels like everybody's ready. It's kind of like passing the baton to one another,
Hmm.
is what it feels like to me, so that we can all grow into our next levels.
Yeah. And I wanna do a little shout out to Connor. You had an interview with him back in
Yeah,
September, and I watched that, and it super resonated. Like
yeah.
the words he was saying, I was like, yes, like it was. I feel and I pick up and I know a lot of this stuff, but sometimes I can't put it into words. But it was like those exact words.
I was gonna say my intuition when you reached out to me was to have you connect with Connor too.
Where I'd love to.
Yeah.
Um, I know that for me and for many, that 2024 was a huge initiatory year. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, it was a year of the dragon. It was just, I mean, no shit. It was burning down all that was not serving. And that it did for
Hmm.
me, and it was a redirection as well. Um, from my experience and what I've seen is like, it was like the masculine and feminine role, like, or like here and here. But for individuals like me, we had to be swept away into our initiation, which had to be separate from the feminine. Because I was
Yeah.
like here with a lot of my sisters, and I was like, we're going on this thing, we're doing this, we're manifesting this, but it couldn't happen the way I would have wanted or have hoped, or it just required a separation, or some kind of just different track.
Hmm.
Um, And it's funny because he even used the word or he even used the parable of Icarus, flying too
Hmm.
close to the sun and falling from grace, and that's exactly that was that couldn't have been more perfect because I'll link that video below for any who are interested. I feel like it still
Yeah.
applies. Um, is right as I went through a shocking experience that, catapulted me or
Hmm.
thrusted me into this next level of initiation. That
Hmm.
very day, somebody used the term, you flew too close to the sun. And it was a really like, thinking back, it was a really creepy foreshadowing, because that's what I essentially was doing in a way that was not aligned to my path.
Mm.
And I know many masculines are going through an initiation in their own way, and it requires them
Mm.
to kind of do it alone. And
Hmm.
so I know that a lot of working with a lot of feminine, especially like within relationship dynamics like twin flames, is that they've seen a lot of their masculines kind of go inward or away or whatever. But I think that's the beauty. It's nothing. Now, a lot of these things are reflections of us, but I think this is where the masculine kind of needs that space, needs
Hmm.
to go in and like and grow up in a way. And I don't mean that in a way that's belittling or anything. I mean that it's time for us to mature as men in a serving and divine way, and also mature spiritually.
With the masculines. Just so you know, the feminines had to do the same thing.
Hmm.
We had to go grow up and mature and really go through those processes in our own way as well.
Yeah, no, I mean 2024, at least the past several months, had it was for everybody. It was, I
Hmm.
mean, I haven't really seen somebody of, I don't want to say affected, but that had to go through their own initiation, the next level. I mean, I knew people that have gone through initiations, awakenings, all this, but it was across the board, and everyone went through it in some way, shape, or form. And so, more
Hmm.
recently, in the past like month or so, it's this, at least for me and many others, there's this chrysalis period, and it's
Hmm.
this like I tell people I'm goo, because in the
Yep.
in the chrysalis, the butterfly become like liquefies
Yep.
before it then rebuilds into a butterfly. And
Yes.
I myself am not, I don't know the next steps. I don't know the next steps. I don't know exactly what it is. It's very unsure, but
Hmm.
I think this is where a lot of the masculine is, like you said, kind of going into the more spiritual, or at least surrender. Like it's like they're kind of switching, borrowing hands. Like the feminine is more in the physical, because I've seen them. I see a lot of my sisters just building their queendoms, like really living this heaven on earth that they were so in hot pursuit of months ago, and
Hmm.
and now it's manifesting in a way, but in a way that wasn't, because they had to reconfigure or
Hmm.
re do things a little differently, and that's really really serving, because they were already like generally more advanced and more aware of a lot of things before a lot that happened more recently. um but the masculine is now in that I mean we hit a wall. We hit a wall, and we had to redirect. And we it was always a choice. It was always a choice. And I kind of see it like a rat in a maze,
Hmm.
where there's many ways to do a certain thing, but it's more, there's truly only one way through, or even out.
Hmm.
And that's kind of and it's kind of a gauntlet of making you into the man that you came here to be, that's going to be supportive of others, right? It's not just self and everyone else. Like as a masculine, you have a gift of supporting others. As the
Hmm.
feminine is rising, I see her like this like beautiful plant or tree or whatever. It requires a to be replanted in a safe, secure container that would be generally the masculine energy, holding her so
Hmm.
she could go even higher. I think a lot
Hmm.
of feminines are kind of like hitting their head on the wall or against the ceiling. It's kind of they can't grow but so much more until the masculine can kind of assist because we can do things like this, we can do things like this, but we kind of need to come together in a lot of
Hmm.
that. Not to say a codependency, to interdependency.
Yes,
Um,
definitely. I agree with you. When you're talking about like being in the chrysalis, the thoughts that were coming into my mind that I sort of went through, it's like you're learning how to commit to yourself,
mhm.
to provide for yourself, right? Because then you have that strong foundation to support others. But right, any of us, we can only hold as much space for another as we've held for ourselves, is what I've learned. So it's like if the feminine wants to hold space for the masculine and the masculine wants to hold space for the feminine, it really, the more we can hold space for ourselves, right? Within that, it opens that up. So how I see it is like when we get that initiation, the counterpart or whatever you want to call it really helps open up that whole other part of who we are that maybe we didn't know was there or it was dormant. And then through the initiation process, we're really learning how to work with that part of ourself and the mirror they offered. And as we're doing that and coming more into the inner union, you notice the more you can hold space for yourself. I can attest it was like this dance of really dropping more into my healed inner masculine because I operated a lot from my wounded masculine and then into my feminine. And then it started to reach points where it was part of my growth to interact with masculines in building like friendships and interdependent connections where we were like, you're really helping each other grow,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of what I'm saying is not just for like twin flames, divine counterparts. This is
Yes.
just collective masculine,
Humans.
yeah,
Yes.
masculine, feminine.
No
Um,
doubt.
Everything you said, that's exactly what I went through because I was overly focused on other individuals way
Hmm.
too much.
Yeah.
And there was this commitment, like a knight that wanted to serve, but
Hmm.
it that I needed this, fall from grace to and solitude
Hmm. Yeah.
to then look at myself, to then really, I mean, so much died, so much. And I see even through this time, it was like a crucifixion to a resurrection. But it's a
Hmm.
blessing in disguise because it gave me me, which is a
Hmm.
huge thing. Um, from the ashes, from I mean, there was nowhere to go but to face myself.
Hmm.
I mean, everything in my reality kind of collapsed in on itself, where it was just almost like it was like I was in one room with nothing else, and that was it. It was almost it was like it was truly like an incarceration isolation.
Yeah.
And so when there's nothing else, it's you go inward.
Hmm.
And it's not like I was unfamiliar with this stuff, on my spiritual experience and journey, but I was bypassing
Hmm.
or wasn't focused enough on certain things that with all other distractions, all other things removed, required me to focus more on it. Um, and I know that it was part of a mastery that I know other of my brothers went through as well in their own
Hmm.
ways. I know many of my brothers had uh, issues with or challenges with their fathers for whether it was actually like clearing of karma or even some of them stepped off but it
Hmm.
was a part of a growing up into like to no longer have a father to rely on that having to be your father, your own like source of masculinity.
Hmm.
And that's a reflection of collectively, because I feel collectively we are kind of, or we are growing up as a species from like an adolescent or a teenage that required like certain things outside of us, like governments and other things, to like put our power in. We are now growing up and taking responsibility for our lives. That for me, I've seen in a lot of my sisters that there's this scene of how the masculine is, less spiritual or more spiritual or whatever, and there's an acceptance of where they are. And I think that's I encourage that. I think it's so beautiful to accept and love people for where they are. Yes, and I also feel it's not going to stay the same. I feel that the masculine is rising right now. It might not look like it. It
Hmm.
might even look like the opposite, but the masculine is awakening right now.
Hmm.
And I feel that humanity no longer, like everyone, no longer has the luxury of the choice of healing and awakening. I kind of
Hmm.
feel I feel that right now I mean, red light critical, Mother Earth, everyone, all hands on deck, everyone is going to be faced with things to heal and to awake.
Hmm.
And that's scary, especially to the masculine who has been more in that rigid New, uh, Newtonian paradigm. And so, as we're kind of having the veil pulled away from us, which the feminine has graciously or difficultly laid the groundwork already.
Well, I have a little thing I would like to add right there. The feminine couldn't do it without the masculine holding in the other template.
Mm.
So I really have seen it that that was what the masculine collective was needed to do, right? So that the feminine could sort of lay the groundwork, but it's always been working in tandem because without the masculine mirror showing us what wanted to be shifted, we wouldn't have known. We would have just been floating up in the clouds,
Yeah,
right? So I really feel that it was just what was meant to happen. In that, I don't know about you, but I remember a time where I would have been considered totally asleep.
yeah,
Definitely. Do you know what I mean? So,
absolutely.
um, I don't know why they're just showing me like, a plant, a rose bush, and you know how some of the buds bloom, but the rest are still like in
Yeah,
process. It's like, but it's all from the same rose bush and they're all working together from the same roots. That just came to me.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All in the divine alignment and time.
Yeah. I think when we can sort of release and understand that we've all been doing exactly what we needed to be doing to hold our part, and then like we get released from that old role when it's completed, because it's as much as it is about our own individual self and our sovereignty, we're all still working together as a collective. So on some levels, we might think that we're ready and we want to move forward. But if there's 20 other people we're meant to connect with in the next phase and they're still working their process because they're connected to 20 other people, do you see what I mean? So all of a
Yes.
sudden it's like, it's just not as simple as that one person. It's like whatever we're all working on and how that affects the rest of the collective. And when you think about it like that, it's pretty amazing that we do get things clicked in and moving forward, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's absolutely true. That's very beautiful. Well put.
I think those energies, and I get it, right? We all grew up in a certain way, right? And I think, like you were saying, more of the codependent energies that were just, that's just what was available. So we all were frustrated with ourselves, frustrated with each other.
Mhm.
In the whole, if you look at it, it was taught to kind of look outside of yourself to project why things weren't working.
Hmm.
But when we go through these processes and you drop in and you take your power back, you're like, oh, actually, when I stop projecting and start looking at the moves I can make, things do start to shift. And not only do I untangle myself from the webs, it starts to, sort of loosen the other webs for everyone around me,
Yes.
you
Wow.
know? But it is big, right? Because shifting that momentum out of what we knew in that time where you're in the chrysalis is sort of like where you're shifting gears. And it can feel lonely and weird and uncertain, of course. But at the same time, it's like where you're actually getting to retrain your nervous system and really start to move the momentum in the direction that you're wanting to go, is
Yes.
what I sense.
Absolutely. That's you hit the nail on the head. What do you feel is next? If there is anything.
Well, I feel when I feel into it, I can give you the broad energies that I really feel we're going to be building more deeply in the new. But as far as like the step by step, that is where it's I unknown for all of us in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
It's like we're remembering the truth of who we are. So the natural nature was always there, which is awesome because we're getting that online. But then also, in truth, we're moving into unknown territory. So we're like the pioneers. So it's like, for me, when I look at it for myself, it's like, okay, the next step is to be open to what feels aligned, be okay with taking the time before I make those decisions, really feeling into how it feels for what I want to build, and really being okay with not pressuring ourselves to have it all figured out.
Hmm.
It really is where we're being called to be more present in the present moment.
Hmm.
And as I'm saying that to you, I feel like the more of us that are able to be present in like really asking, like, and surrendering to, okay, what is next? What is in the highest alignment? And then waiting for whatever messages come through. I actually believe that is why we're starting to move momentum so quickly into the new, because so many more of us are in the present or acting from that intuitive energy, like from that guidance, like, okay, I'm only going to do it if it's truly aligned. Yes, I would like this and I'm open to it, but I'm really not interested in it if it's not aligned. And that is really unraveling those codependent patterns. And so what I see that doing is it's really clearing the pathway. And
Yeah.
so because the pathway is getting clearer, in a way, it's dwindling down our options, but it's only offering what's truly aligned.
Yeah. It's kind of like sifting for the gold or the truth.
Yes. I remember back when I was first learning and hearing about, the law of attraction and manifesting what you want. And back when I first learned about it, I was really trying to get very specific, but that actually took me down a lot of rabbit holes.
Hmm.
In what nowadays, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can know what I want. I know how I want to feel. I know like generally what my standards are, but most of all, I really just want it to be what I'm truly meant to be doing.
Mm.
And so it actually releases a lot of pressure to just align with that higher truth and sort of let that be your guide. And at the same time, I guess in a lot of ways, that's where we think of that as the feminine energy, right? Like surrendering and flowing. But at the same time, we still need that masculine energy to build and take action. So that's why I love working with the inner union energies, because if I was only in my feminine energy completely, I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just feel like we're definitely moving into a deeper process of the conscious creation.
Yes. Because for me, you know, deliberate manifesting was something I was doing, I was very good at. But the amount of pressure I was putting on it made like this pressure cooker of almost like a bomb that blew up in my face. And
Hmm.
was that fall from grace,
Yeah.
or that redirection and then a fall from the sun, the Icarus thing. And it's it's not that, for me at least, it wasn't that a lot of the stuff was not true. It was just there's a balance of allowing what is, like, aligning what you want, where you want to go with your higher self, with, like, your higher self, God, a reconnection, like, because it was very ego. It was very like just me here, what I want, right?
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of these communities kind of, it kind of can seem to overly focus on. But when you add in a divine presence, we can,
Yeah.
God, Goddess, I don't know, your higher self, source, whatever, it's
Yeah.
there's a re-sacredness. And I feel that, like, because that was overly masculine, but then with this connection, this surrendering, that's where it was like merging with the feminine.
Hmm.
Um, because I see a lot of my sisters really have mastered that, or at least really practice that. And I'm curious, is there, what would you have to say to my to our brothers about this? Because I can see how this would really make sense and apply to a lot of our sisters, but where our brothers, I mean, it might be like there might not be an input for them to reference.
I think what's most important is that it's not necessarily about getting rid of what you've already known.
Hmm.
It's not like like what you've done is bad or wrong. You're really just expanding on it,
Yeah.
and I think that is important because there is value in the logical, there is value in the action. It's just coupling it with the other parts of you that's really going to be like the motor to your boat.
Yeah.
Because you still need all of those parts. Like I just said, like I've had to add those in. If I only operated from my feminine, like there wasn't a whole lot going on. I sort of went through these processes on my healing journey where I told you I operated a lot from my masculine just to survive. And so I had to really drop in. And when I was alone, I spent a lot of time, learning my feminine and to receive and to go more with the flow. And then it was like, okay, but there's not a whole lot happening in my physical world. So I had to like reopen to my masculine energies and really sort of work with both in a
Yeah.
deeper way. There was times I had done it, but this was like, okay, this is going to be my new norm. So when we're really changing all the way to the core of things, just give yourself grace. I think what can feel the hardest is like, well, I don't know how to do that, so I don't want to do it. I want to go into what I know how to do. I get that, right? Because you're creating a whole new habit. That way, your brain, your body, your energy, you don't have to use a lot of extra because you know how to do it, right? Like brushing your teeth. But if you can look at it like, okay, I'm gonna still do this, but now I can just open up to adding in some new perspectives to the table, kind of It's like buying new tools for your toolbox. You don't throw out the hammer and the nails just because you got a new, you know, screw gun.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Because you're sometimes you're just gonna need that hammer and nails.
Hmm.
And I think it's just looking at it that you're all good where you are. You're just bringing in new tools.
Mm. I love that. More tools to the bat belt. That's how I
Yeah.
referenced it.
Yes.
That was definitely also part of the challenge for me was the synthesis of what I've learned and what I mean, even what wasn't working and even what I was learning.
Mhm.
And it to me I like struggled with it because I was trying to consciously figure it out and understand it, like trying to force a square peg in a round hole. But the
Mhm.
more I mean, I literally surrendered. I was just like it. I allow the understanding or the eventual like epiphany or just to see, just to one day see how it applies and works out without. So I just surrendered it. And
Yes.
that's happening right now. Like I see that.
Yes.
And it's not like I completely consciously comprehend it, but I feel it and I know and I see how it's unfolding and making more sense.
Perfect. I get that. I actually went through that myself. It was like I was getting the new concepts and the energies, and they made sense to me. But there came a point in time, it felt like I didn't know how to express it. This was even when I already had my YouTube channel, but it was like I could feel that I was like absorbing and learning, and then I was ready to level up. But part of that level up was like stepping back and not, it's like rest to manifest. Like, don't try to figure it out.
Mm.
And that's actually like where the integration happens when we kind of take a break. Vacation is good sometimes.
Yeah, it was vacation. I like that word better. I it's felt more like a hiatus.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, because there was so much of me that wanted to give up, that wanted
Hmm.
to, but that didn't feel right. Like I didn't like it was I was already too far to turn
Yeah.
around to go back to stop, but I didn't know how to proceed. So I just saw myself just putting my sword in the dirt and just kind of being there.
Hmm.
I mean through the night, through the in facing every little thing. Even with and just allowing even the most uncomfortable, the like the negative, the hate, the things about myself I really didn't like, and because I would reframe a lot of things. So I kind of
Hmm.
stopped doing that and I looked at it for what it was, what this manifestation was showing me, regardless of of anything.
Hmm.
Not sugarcoating like a gash in your body, like not. Is that what is that going to do? Putting
Right.
sugar on an open wound isn't really going to help anything. Um, Acknowledging, even like acknowledging the villain, like seeing where I played the role that was even heartbreaking. Like
Mm.
even if it objectively wasn't true, I entertained it at least. I gave it the attention, and
Yes.
even if I was like the bad guy, even the immature masculine would be to kind of blame or to like just say no, I didn't do that or something. But I took full responsibility for what I did for others and for what I did for myself.
Hmm.
And even because I even like worst case scenarios, I said if that was that's okay. I love myself, and it was tough, it's not like that like helped it instantly because it's like peaks and valleys, and there's
Hmm.
back and forth and everything. It's tumultuous, but
Yeah.
it was it was very needed to go through that. Okay.
It's
It's
all good.
it's all good. It's all, I mean, it's all supposed to happen, right? It's all
You know what? If this helps you, I completed my thought. I don't know if it'll be on the recording or not, but we'll trust whatever
okay. Yeah.
works out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll Frankenstein it to something beautiful.
Or you can leave it and say, we had a power surge.
Honestly, that's already so I'm currently uh making another podcast about interviewing my brothers and just getting their experiences. And one of my brothers, he was just recording off his phone, and he was talking about like the masculine of the warrior's code, and how live every day like it's your last, and you'll never know, because you never know if tomorrow is promised. So give every day, give it all your every day and everything you do. And
Mhm.
so his phone that he was recording on died, and there was no more, like, because he had to go right after that. It was because we already went over time. So I added an insert in the editing saying, like, just kind of a callback to that, saying we never, just how he said that tomorrow's not promised, maybe not even in the next few moments. So kind of even
Right.
when it ends just like that.
Exactly.
So I mean, just the
Yes.
mask, and you kind of take it. This is what it is, and you roll with it.
Yes.
Because that I mean, because that's what I was doing. I would be wishing things were different, or things happened differently, and again, like reframing things or whatever. And it was just like,
Yes.
that works. I think it all works, but what at least didn't feel aligned or authentic was that, and taking what it is what it is, and making the best out of it and moving forward. That felt
Yes.
more aligned. And I feel, regardless of who you are, that is a well, that's kind of a blend of masculine and feminine, but it's because again, it's the flow, but it's, I feel like, the acceptance of,
Yeah.
because I mean, I just see it as a soldier. Like a soldier, it's like, this is what it is. What do we do about it? What's next? Eyes forward. Things happen unideal in a warrior scenario or a soldier on a battlefield. You move forward.
Hmm.
Um, so that feels masculine to me.
You just hit something though right there. I feel that when we really get down to it, we have the masculine and feminine because it helps us sort of explore. It gives us the mirror,
Hmm.
but at the same time, most of the solutions are right in the middle.
Yeah.
It's the two perspectives married that really give us the true solutions. I was thinking about that last night, how um that's one of the things I've really seen for myself is when I was more rigid in certain views. A lot of times I was holding a rigid view because the other person was holding a rigid view. And so it was like that was like where the battle set in. But the truth is that we both held a piece of the puzzle.
Hmm.
And when the two things kind of softened and we looked at each other's perspectives, it was like, oh, actually, this makes it even better.
Yeah.
Like, that's even better than the solution I was thinking. Like, and that is where it goes back to what I was saying about it's not that what we're doing or what we did was wrong. We're just building on it. We're expanding on it. We're adding more tools to the box. And hey, who doesn't want more tools?
Um, and it's that synthesis, which is a beautiful. I mean, that's part of, like, the unity in all areas. With
Yeah.
self, in relationships, collectively, and that's part of the
Hmm.
oneness that we're coming home to.
Yes. And someone else being right doesn't make you wrong,
Yeah, because that's
you
that's
know?
that's a zero sum game. That's
Yeah.
it's separation. That means, like, yeah, it's not yes, and it's not honoring. It's, yeah. I mean, separation. So I feel absolutely, yeah. And it's interesting to see how, we've subscribed to that. There's like one reality. There's one way. There's one thing. There's a right way,
Hmm.
where um there's there's a myriad of
Yes.
truths, of ways, of what serves. And I know that that challenges a lot of a lot that what we've coming from, but that I think that's the beauty of the new age.
Hmm. Yes, in the new ways for sure. It really kind of comes down to that's where our uniqueness comes into play. Because what works for me might not work for you, but it doesn't make it wrong and
Hmm.
it doesn't make you wrong. It's like you take the pieces that work for you, but that's really the unique expression. And I don't think anyone else's perfect way is meant to be someone else's perfect way. We're meant to have our own unique flavor.
Yeah.
That's what sort of creates that tapestry.
Yes. And how that's how I kind of see the age of Aquarius. Like I love how you said flavor and tapestry is. I see it like a bouquet. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's not just one type of flower. It's just this massive bouquet or just massive field of all different flowers. With each color, different colors, petals, and aromas, adding to this beautiful perfume collective. I mean,
Yes.
it's like a screen. A screen is made out of all different color pixels, but it puts together a picture. Or
Right.
yeah,
Yes. And when you really, one time I remember hearing this and it really struck deeply with me. And we're all sparks of source, right? And source is infinite and always growing and expanding and creating. So we're here to be that infinite expression of source. So as we're living and breathing and being who we are, we're not just knowing ourselves better, but we're supporting source in growing and knowing itself better,
yes,
you know? So it's like, it's pretty cool when you think about it that way. It's kind of like our purpose to be our unique expression.
yeah. Because it's all about the expansion. It's all about
Mhm.
where it hasn't been before. Because I mean, you
Yep.
are source experience itself as Danielle, as Matt, as whatever,
Yep.
whoever, and it's there's so many things it could be. It's like just peering through the dark, like what am I, and just feeling
Mhm.
through and doing things and looking at itself and recognizing itself uh, as it continues to unfurl, unfold, evolve, develop, grow, expand, shift,
Yes.
in the psychedelic experience of of the universe. As the as the like you even said, like we're all different, like rosebuds on some are bloom, some are not. I feel more are blooming,
Mhm.
and especially a lot of our brothers who are awakening now. It's as as like kind of like you said, the masculine was holding space for the feminine to awakening. Now in a switch role, the feminine is kind of holding space as the masculine is awakening.
Mhm.
And I feel it's perhaps it's going to be a little bit more efficient. Maybe not like it's going to happen. The masculine's very efficient at when they do things, when they finally decide and commit. And I feel it's when we finally do, we're going to kind of meet the feminine at this perfect time, this moment
Mhm.
in the near future. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I actually agree. And I just kind of talked about this, I think last week somewhere, where I spoke about how it's kind of funny. Like the feminine is like, where's the masculine? Yeah, feminine energy moves slow and in spirals and patterns, right? And the masculine is very linear and direct. But again, that's where I'm saying, like, we were working together. The masculine was working the whole time with the feminines. So to me, it's like it makes sense that it would sync up in that timing, in the perfect way when it feels aligned for both or for the collectives or however, because the masculine was holding space with the feminine the whole time. So why would he not receive the results of the work they were doing together? The
Yeah.
same way she's receiving the results from the work that was done together.
Yeah.
And it's for me, I feel like it's just my big motto is like space and grace for myself, space and grace for everyone, because we're all going through that unique path. And so, even when I feel and see like that potential where this masculine stuff could happen really, really swiftly, it's like, okay, that's awesome. I'm going to hold space for that, but then I'm going to even give it more space because the masculines have felt pressure their whole life.
Mm.
Like, so how about, just give it space because the space without the pressure, well, it's like a combo, right? There's a good pressure and then there's like a pressure that I don't know about you, but sometimes there's certain pressures that I don't move very well with, right?
Yeah.
But then there's other pressures that feel very like the motor to the boat. And
There's
it
pressure
feels
that
like
makes diamonds, and then there's pressures that destroy and crush.
yes.
It's what does the thing have that is receiving the pressure need?
Right. Yes. Right. Because some of it, some pressure squishes you, right? And then other pressure like catapults you.
Hmm.
So it feels like when I feel that pressure for the masculine building, it's not like, oh my gosh, hurry up. It's like, okay, cool. You got this.
Hmm.
I'm just going to hold over here. And you have all the space that you need to sort through that. Right. For me, I think those energies, like we all wish it was yesterday, right? To some degree, we go through those pockets. I've literally retrained my energy quite a bit when that comes up. It's like I actually appreciate the process because we're actually truly embodying. And I would much rather take the time to hold the space for the masculine to embody into his true self for himself than rush it because that is the gift that he gave me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that when the masculine is left to his own device, he thrives a little bit better than you would think. Because masculine's been told, been shaped, been cut, but when he's finding out who he is, when he discovers his gifts, put him in a room with things, and he'll find out what they are, what they mean to him,
Mhm.
and when that starts to kind of build, it then snowballs.
Yes. Like the feminine has to go her own way to find herself as well,
Hmm.
right? And then it's like she's reaching a point, like I was saying earlier, where now it's like, okay, now she needs people back in the picture to help her grow to the next levels,
Yeah.
right? And then you're sort of going along, and then it starts to sync up, and people reconnect or connect with new people to help that process continue to grow.
Hmm. Absolutely.
It kind of feels like, well, my thought, I was like thinking about like you're painting a painting and you have like one color, right? And maybe you're painting with one color and white, and then you're adding in another color all of a sudden. It's, I don't know why that came to me. It's like, but for a while, you just have to paint with that one color. You just have to learn this one pocket, master it, and get good at it. And then you can add in the other piece, I would say, in a way. And I think another part that's important is that regardless if you're masculine or feminine, it's kind of taking a bits and pieces of all of this, right?
Mm.
Knowing when to go slow and cultivate it and take time to process it. And then the times where it is just that straight, linear, quick line forward. And I think if we really drop in, all of us can probably recall moments in time where we've done a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But I think in the collectives, as we sync up as like a man and a woman, it will be more the men holding the masculine container and the feminine holding the feminine. I kind of see it though, like as we truly step into our own power, we just have each other's back,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Bringing
Yes.
the everything that we have learned, experienced, and mastered together that are complementary, and then from there expanding into greater horizons or
Yes.
heights of, like again, like more of that expansion that we were talking about before,
Yes. Yeah.
from a
And
very empowered place.
yes. And really, it's like, yeah, it's taking us time to get there. But the cool part is I think what we're actually doing is creating the true template of what we've all actually always wanted and craved.
Yeah,
There just wasn't the space for it before, but now as we create the space for ourselves, it creates the space for that true version of the connections and friendships and partnerships to land as well.
absolutely. Beautifully. Is there anything else you would like to add to, what, to the theme of all of this?
Um, well, I think wherever you are, whatever you're doing, however you're feeling, just keep going because sometimes it's feels like the darkest before the dawn, right? In those moments where you feel like I'm doing all of this and am I really getting anywhere? I can attest, keep going. You will get there. And it's sort of in that resolve and that commitment to yourself and your truth and what you want that helps us. Oh, and with that, it's like there was moments in time where I was working and I thought things were really going to unfold and like the pieces just weren't landing. And in my old mind wanted to tell me that I wasn't doing it right or that I messed up. But really what I found is that there was just other things that I needed to learn or experience to get to where I really wanted to go. So if something isn't happening in the exact moment, instead of looking down, just sort of open up and say, oh, okay, what is my next step to get me where I want to be?
Mm.
And it was like for me, whole other perspectives would open up. And there was like steps along the way that I couldn't see at first, but those steps were actually helping me build what I was desiring to build in the long run.
Isn't that funny how that is? You couldn't see it at first, but that's because it was a surprise.
Yeah.
It,
Because, right, you get the vision sometimes of the long game, and
mhm.
then you're like, well, why am I not there yet? But then all of a sudden you start to open the gifts along the path, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, now I can actually see the walkway because I'm actually building it. And there was so much more to experience during the process.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful.
Sweet. Awesome.
So that'll do it for this episode. Thank you so much, Danielle, for being a part of this and being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was awesome. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And thank you all for watching. MC Roy the Light out.